Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the Airtime Misfits podcast. I'm your host, Adam, alongside Nick.
What's up?
Nick, I got a joke for you. Why did the T-Rex go extinct?
Oh, I'm curious. Why did the T-Rex go extinct?
He had a reptile dysfunction. All right. All right. Honestly, I couldn't think of a
Yeah.
pun, so I Google searched extinction pun, and that's what the best one I came up with. The
Ah, that
reason
yeah,
why,
that tickled me. I did
yes.
like that.
So we're talking about extinct roller coasters, or defunct is another word you could call them. This is part two of a series are doing. Part one, you can go back and listen to. We talked about our favorite defunct coasters that we did get to ride before they were removed. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the ones that we did not get to ride.
Yes, the ones that we've just wished for years that we could have had the opportunity, but we're not given that.
So this should be fun. Nick and I don't know each other's list, so it's going to be a surprise for everyone involved.
So, topping off the list,
Wait, so are
Adam.
you counting down? Are you going to count down your five to number one, right? That's what we're
Yes.
doing? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just making sure we're on the same page.
Oh yes. Yes.
And this will be interesting too before we get into it, because I imagine there's going to be some on your list that I've gotten to ride and vice versa,
Yeah. Yeah. I
possibly.
think I think there's at least one on mine. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What's your number five?
Oh, number five. So we all know that I am the biggest Fantas of Mantis, and
Yes.
fortunately, I did get to ride that.
Yeah.
However, there is an intimate stand-up cousin to this beloved Mantis of mine, and that is Batman the Escape at Astroworld.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
It operated as Flashback at Great Adventure and Magic Mountain,
Hmm.
and then eventually went to Astroworld, if I remember correctly. I think I got that right.
Well,
Um,
I do remember there was a time, I forget what Six Flags called it, but they had a program where they were essentially
the
like,
ride rotation.
yes, where they were
Yeah.
just moving coasters around. Like it would be at a park for 3 years and they would move it on to another Six Flags park.
And this one was definitely a part of that. And yeah, it's I've been really intrigued by not just stand-up coasters in general, but like the more rare ones, I guess, like Togo stand-ups
Oh
and
yeah,
Inaman stand-ups.
right.
So I've always wondered what the variation in ride experience would be like. So the Inaman ones seem maybe better constructed than the Togo ones.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
that's kind of been my appeal to Batman the Escape. And also there was one called Cobra at La Ronde, I think.
Okay.
So
Is
they're
that
we're a
one
couple
also
miles.
is that one also extinct or defunct?
Yes, as of 2016, I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to try an Intamin stand-up coaster just to see how it compares, because I obviously have been on a B&M stand-up and I've been on a Togo, but to see how an Intamin stacks up against those, that'd be really interesting.
I know. Yeah. So that's been my big focus on that. They look interesting. The trains have like this weird cage thing, but it doesn't look uncomfortable. It
Are
just
they
looks kind of
Yeah, are
cool.
they four across or two across?
Four across.
Four, okay. Huh.
Yeah, so different from Togo in that respect.
Yeah, yeah, because Togo's just the two across on the
Right.
bicycle seat looking
Yeah.
janky trains. Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead with your number five there,
Okay.
Adam?
Yeah. Number five for me is Batman and Robin, the Chiller, which is
Mm.
located at Six Flags Great Adventure. It opened in 1997. It closed in 2007. Now, over that stretch, though, it had a lot of issues.
Oh yeah.
Now, this coaster was built by Premier. It was a Premier launch shuttle coaster. It dueled. It came out to coincide with the release of the Batman and Robin movie starring George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell and
Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. So like the looks of this ride, it was pretty awesome looking. Like they took some theming from the movie. Like I believe the station was themed to like a Gotham City building
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze or something. No, it wasn't Mr. Freeze. It was Gotham City, like an observatory. I think that's what it looked like, an
Yes.
observatory.
Yeah.
So the structure, the Robin side of it was like you would launch into a giant cobra roll,
Hmm.
and then kind of it was like a boomerang, or so you'd go through the cobra roll and then go up a spike and then
Right.
come back. And then the Batman side was more of an inverted top hat, like you would
Hmm.
see like on the
On
Mr.
Mr. Freeze.
Freeze. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then the idea is like these would duel and you would launch at the same time and really fun. But yeah, the ride was plagued with issues its entire life, and they even had to make some modifications, and it still I think it was known as being a pretty rough coaster. It was pretty
Yeah.
unreliable.
Yeah.
um but it was just really cool looking, and I'm a big fan of Batman, and so
Oh yeah.
that the theming and how big the structure was, because it was about 200 feet tall, and I think the drop was like 140 or so, like that. But I mean, it was a really cool looking ride, really unique. I mean, Mr. Freeze, I guess you can say, is the closest comparison to this ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the dueling aspect and everything, it just makes it that much cooler. So I wish I got that coaster credit.
I know, man. And technically, two. It could have been two credits in one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Oh yeah.
But yeah. I from what I know, that ride, I think it was even delayed when it originally opened
Yeah.
because they had so many issues. So
Well, yeah, because
we'll let.
I when I was looking up the opening and closing date, I was like, because I think it had a soft opening in 1997, but it didn't actually open to the public until 1998.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
like trying to determine like, well, what would technically be the opening date? Yeah, so
Well, we have an episode about this very coaster
yes,
with none other than Mark Goodike
that's right.
joining us.
Yes, yeah.
So,
So go ahead and
uh,
check that out.
yeah, go listen to that. Anyway, so
Yeah,
number four.
what's your number four?
This this one was tricky. I kind of went back and forth between a couple, but I decided just for the experience, just because it looks so crazy, flashback at Magic Mountain.
You know what? I considered this one, and I was really tempted to put it on my list. It just barely missed it. And
Yeah, and I've heard it was an abomination of a ride.
yeah,
It sucked.
yeah,
But it just looks so crazy.
yeah. It's really interesting looking. I think that was another one of those Six Flags coasters that moved around.
It did
I
quite a bit.
believe, yeah. And yeah, if you guys don't know what this ride looks like, look it up on Google. It's really interesting looking. I don't even know what to compare it to. It's kind of like a wild
It's
mouse, but more
but
extreme than that.
the
So
other direction. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like it had it. I think it was the first coaster to include like what did they call it? That dive that it did.
yeah,
Like a hairpin kind of
yeah,
dive or
yeah.
something.
I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
yeah. It was
it
one.
was a yeah, it was a pretty compact layout,
Yes, and
and
I heard it. I heard it was loud as all hell
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
So
and this ride is interesting too because you can look up on YouTube and find some videos of it, like the opening. There's a pretty funny one I watched one time. It was like the opening of this ride at Magic Mountain, and a news reporter was going to go ride it for the first time, like so it was gonna be like broadcast on air, and you could just tell that he was miserable. Like it was just rough and like whipping his neck around, and
oh,
yeah,
I cannot imagine.
yeah.
Oh,
I wonder where in the park that coaster was located.
it was near the water park, I think.
Was it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like
Like, do you know if
near.
anything replaced it? Like it's
Hmm.
I'm not
Not.
that I'm not super familiar with like Magic Mountain's history of coasters.
I'm not either. I don't. I don't know what replaced it. I know they had to operate it only at certain times because the noise would distract the water park guests
Oh,
or
really?
or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's all I know. But so yeah, I don't even know what the closest coaster to that would be. I'm just trying to remember the layout of the park.
I think like
Um,
Full Throttle is
it's that
near that.
direction.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd have
I'll
to
look it
think
up
about
though
that.
after this. I'm sure there's
Yes,
people that are listening to this that would know. Let us know in the comments section.
Chris, please
Yeah,
tell us.
yes, yes. Okay, number 4 for me is Hypersonic XLC, which
Another one
was
I thought about.
this was located at King's Dominion. It opened in 2001, closed in 2007, so a very short
Short life.
lifespan. Yeah. This was built by S&S. It was one of their air-launched coasters. I believe it was around 200 feet. It was a really short ride. Basically, you launch up a top hat and then down and around, and that was it. It was like
Hmm.
an 18-second ride, but at the time, this was the first air-launched coaster, I believe.
Yes,
Um,
it was.
and it was a model by SNS called like Thrust 2000 or something. And I
Yeah.
remember, I think this was probably before Hypersonic opened, but I had a roller coaster book that had this model. Like SNS had built it out in the desert somewhere,
Hmm.
the Thrust 2000 model. And so just the fact like I have this like nostalgic memory of seeing this style of coaster.
Yeah.
uh yeah, like I wish I could have experienced one of these models, and I don't think they built very many. Like
Uh,
the one that's in Asia.
Dododonpa.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't even gonna try
Yeah.
to say. Yeah, because I think that one is a SNS, like this model of
Yes.
coaster, right? Yeah.
It came out around not the same year, I don't think, but around that time that XLC came out. And I do know that XLC is actually the prototype.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So that's the one that was on SNS's grounds.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And SNS is located in Utah, right? Just north of
Yes.
Salt Lake City. Yeah. So that
Yep.
would explain why I had the book of that coaster sitting out in the desert.
Yes.
And what's the name of the coaster? Dum da Dupa.
Dododonpa yeah, it's
Right.
something like that.
Now, does that hold the record for like the fastest acceleration or something like that?
I think it has something to do with the vertical loop actually.
Oh, okay. I thought it held some kind of record.
It does. I can't remember exactly. I feel like because they just recently added a vertical loop
Yeah.
to the layout. They
Yep.
had took out like whatever was there before. So yeah, I thought it was something to do with the loop, but maybe you're right. Actually, I think it might be the launch or like the thrust of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And SNS, they're still doing launch coasters now. They have Max Force that opened at Six Flags Great
uh-huh.
America a couple years ago, which is awesome. That's my favorite launch on a coaster I've been on. So I imagine Hypersonic, while a very short ride, would be fun. I mean, as fun as
Yeah.
like riding Top Thrill Dragster is.
Oh sure. Yeah, you do it for the fun of it, but
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably really intense.
right. Yeah. That's one of those coasters that was open for such a short period of time, and there's a very few of these types of coasters in the world that I wish I could have experienced it before it was gone. And nothing in particular replaced it. Like I think Windseeker is in the area where
Yeah.
Hypersonic was, and the station for Hypersonic is still there. I think they use it for storage and maybe for a haunt during the Halloween time. But if you do go to King's Dominion, you can look for the Hypersonic station. It's near Windseeker. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's right kind of in the trying to remember. It's near Twisted Timbers.
yep, yeah, near
Yep.
Twisted Timbers,
Yeah,
kind of
that's
over
right.
by Grizzly over there. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's right.
Yeah. Yep.
Um so my my number 3 is one that I know for a fact you've ridden and I've always been jealous because I'm a B&M fanboy, Dueling Dragons.
Oh yeah.
It's one that I remember seeing in books growing up, and always thought it was cool that it was basically because my only point of reference growing up was Raptor, and to me
Yeah.
two raptors,
Right.
that
Right.
interact
Right.
with each other.
Yeah.
So it, that's how I always kind of viewed it in my you know 12-year-old brain. But yeah, it just seemed interesting. Maybe not the best coaster ever. I'm sure the fact that it got scrapped means that it was probably pretty beaten up from the weather and wear and all that.
Right.
So I can't imagine it was the best B&M ever, but it just seemed like a cool experience.
Oh yeah, it looked awesome, and I'm a big fan of any kind of dueling coaster, and so having a dueling invert that has like all these near miss moments, like, it's
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
And yeah, so I did ride, well, technically I didn't ride Dueling Dragons. I rode Dragon Challenge.
Oh, that's
So
right.
yeah, so I would have loved to have ridden Dueling Dragons when it was actually dueling, because after a while they stopped doing that. Like they would send the trains out separately.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
because I think they had some issues with the near miss elements where people were getting injured with flying whatever cell phones or cameras. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So to be able to ride it, one of the first few years it was open would be really cool.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because I would say like Dragon Challenge, I rode the blue side. It was a good invert, but without like the dueling aspect, like it wasn't anything special.
Yeah, maybe just like a standard
Yeah, it was
B&M
fine.
invert. Yeah,
Yeah, kind of
that doesn't
forgettable to
count.
me, but I
Yeah,
know people who grew up, in Florida or grew up riding Dueling Dragons really love that coaster, because when it closed, you could tell like a lot of people were upset or, had, strong attachments to it.
sure. Yeah.
And of course, we all know that was replaced by Hagrid's motorbike, motor creature, motor adventure,
Yes.
whatever. Magical Hagrid's
Way too many words.
motorcycles. Yeah.
Yeah. Way entirely too many words.
Yeah. Which is a fun coaster, but yeah.
Yeah, the line is egregious, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
what do you got at number three?
Okay. Number three for me is Drachenfire at Busch Gardens.
Mhm.
So this one was located back in the German section. It was a really cool looking ride. Like the first drop into that kind of that inversion was cool. And I think ride, I mean, it had a reputation of being rough from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah, it did.
I can't
Mhm.
recall like what the reliability of the ride was, but I know that Busch Gardens decided to close it, remove it because of just all of the complaints they had of how uncomfortable it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, just decided to cut their losses. But this is just another one where it was open for such a short amount of time that I wish I could have, been one of those lucky few people that got to experience all the whiplash and concussion
Oh yeah.
feelings of riding Drachenfire.
Of course. It's worth it in the end,
Oh
to
yeah.
have that experience.
Well, any of these like infamous defunct coasters, it'd be cool to just have that credit, like to say that you rode it,
Yeah.
even though like knowing like it was, obviously not a good experience.
Right, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly why Drachenfire's my number two. Because I
Yeah.
I I knew it would be one of those coasters
Yeah.
that it looked really cool, but
Yeah.
probably felt like hell.
Oh yeah.
And it would
Yeah.
just be worth just one lap. That's all I'd
Right.
want to do
Yeah.
on
I just want one. Yeah.
it. Yeah,
And
yeah.
and that plot of land right now at Busch Gardens is rumored to be the future home of Busch Gardens' next new coaster, which I think the latest rumor is a ground up RMC coaster. In pre-COVID, it was supposed to be that Giga shuttle coaster,
Uh-huh.
Drakenspeyer,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but it seems like those plans have been shelved for now. But no one, I guess, really no one knows what they're going to do with that land. But it seems like that's going to be the home of whatever they're going to do next. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it seems like, cuz it's just like if you're at the park and you know where this area is, like it seems like a perfect spot for any other, like a for a marquee attraction,
hmm,
because Busch Gardens has great coasters,
yeah,
but they don't have that one really standout, like
yeah,
they have a bunch of really solid coasters,
yeah,
but they don't have just that one. And I feel like this would be the nice plot of land to like pay homage to what the coaster they wished was that one, however many
hmm,
years ago, and
hmm,
also just kind of finally get that missing piece.
yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah, like you said, I mean, they have an awesome coaster collection, but they don't have like the massive coaster that's bringing people there from all over the country necessarily, like the
Right.
way a Cedar Point has a Millennium Force or a Topsail Dragster or Steel Vengeance type of thing, or
Mhm.
Carowinds with Fury. Yeah, but if they did like a ground up RMC back in that area, I think obviously everyone would want to ride it, especially
Yeah.
with how popular Iron Gwazi was at Busch Gardens Tampa. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
And this is another coaster too, where the station is still standing. If you go back there, it's back by the Fest House building. You can
Mhm.
kind of peek back there, and I believe they use the station for storage as well. And for Drakenspeyer, it appeared that they were going to reuse the station, which would have been a cool
Yeah.
nod to Drakenfire. So I hope they still kind of keep that idea.
I would. Yeah. I hope so too. I would really like that. So what's your number? I think that was technically my number two
Yeah,
also.
that's
So what's your number two?
my number two is we're just gonna stay at Busch Gardens. It's Big Bad Wolf,
Ah, yes. Yes.
which is
It's
the suspended roller coaster. This one, from what I've heard from people who rode it, like my brother Mark, he was saying that this coaster was definitely the most intense suspended coaster he's been on, and easily the best one he's been on. And this one has like the well-known, well-photographed drop like over the Rhine River, which what's the coaster that's there now? Verbolten does the
Verbolten.
same thing. I mean, the theming too, because you can watch a POV, there's parts of the coaster where it's like going through like a German looking town. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, just, oh, and I also love the trains with like the wolf eyes in the front.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
just a lot of reasons why this ride in particular would be, cool to have as on my coaster count. Just, it just looked like something that everyone loved. Again, another coaster that was removed that a lot of people were upset about. And
Yes.
yeah, so I feel like that's a coaster that I missed out on.
Oh yeah, I agree. And that was another one that narrowly made my list. But um this so my number one is an obscure one, but it's one that I have sentimental reasons to like writing it. It's Joker's Revenge. Yes,
Mm,
it became Jester at New Orleans.
yeah.
Uh, this was a weird coaster. I remember seeing it back in 1998, but I was still too small to ride it, so I never actually got to ride it. But it was a Vekoma Hurricane model.
Okay, yeah.
Uh, and there were only two ever made. The other one's in France.
It's
And
kind of
this one,
ironic that it was destroyed by a hurricane.
yeah, exactly. So, um, but it Joker's Revenge specifically because it was the Joker themed or whatever, they ran it backwards entirely.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's really interesting.
super weird. Like it just is a basic, essentially corkscrew model, kind
Yeah.
of different, but it's entirely backwards. So I remember being a kid just thinking like that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So
It seemed like it could be extremely painful going backwards on one
oh
of those,
yeah.
and not being able to brace yourself for whatever turns it was gonna do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And looking back again, it would have been a painful experience, but
Hmm.
uh there's actually videos on YouTube. You can see the queue. The
Yeah.
queue is an old like Joker themed funhouse,
Yeah.
and it's really freaky actually.
I've
It's
actually, yeah, I've looked it up on your recommendation before because I know we've
uh
talked about this ride before
yeah.
because I know
Uh
how much you liked it. And yeah, the queue was really creative, and the coaster itself was kind of like a purpley pink color, wasn't it?
yeah, it was a
Yeah,
really
okay.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have some pretty cool concept art of the ride, don't you?
Yeah, the original artist designed the layout for the station for that one
Yeah.
and for I think Chiller too.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe Joker's Jinx too. They all came out around that time frame.
Yeah.
But I emailed him. I was like, "Hey, I don't know if you sell prints. Like, I loved the concept art for
Hmm.
Joker's Revenge." And he's like, "Oh no, here's these files for free," and just sent me the art files for it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
so cool.
so can't remember his name, but yeah, he was a great designer. So that really added to the experience, I think.
Oh yeah. All right. So my number one. Wait, that was your number one?
That was my number one. Yeah,
Okay. I'm surprised this one didn't make your list.
I
I would,
know.
you know what I'm going to say. I would argue
I
this is the most infamous defunct coaster of all time.
I
That
think I
is,
know which one.
yeah, Son of Beast
Yes. Yep.
at Kings
I knew it.
Island. Yeah, this opened in 2000. 2000 was a huge year for new coasters.
Uh-huh.
Millennium Force, the other one that comes to mind, among other really good coasters of 2000. This one opened in 2000, and when it opened, it featured a vertical loop. So it was the first wooden coaster to feature an inversion. But
Yeah.
eventually
It was.
they had to modify the coaster and remove that loop. And this was another coaster that, like, over the short lifespan that it had so many issues with people getting injured. I think, there's a handful of times where like a large amount of people on a train got injured for one reason or another, like where the track was out of an alignment and people, messed their necks up or their back, and a lot of
Hmm.
reasons. Yeah. So eventually when Cedar Fair came in and purchased Kings Island from Paramount, I believe they ran Son of Beast for a couple years and then eventually just shut it down, and it
Yep.
kind of stood standing for a while and not operating, and then eventually they just tore it down, and now we have a Banshee, which is a pretty cool invert. But
Yeah.
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 But so
I
Son of Beast, I can guarantee 100% that I would have hated it. But
absolutely.
I would have loved to ride Son of Beast in its original form with the vertical loop, just to say that I rode it. And I mean, whether you like the coaster or not, you can't argue that it wasn't like really cool looking.
Oh, absolutely. And it looked like a big beaver dam or something, like just a
Yeah,
mess of
it
wood.
did. Oh yeah, it
Like,
was just a tower of wood, and yeah. Yeah, I mean, structurally it was very impressive looking, very impressive looking.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was one that again narrowly made my list. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad one of us had that one at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say overall, I mean, I'm surprised we only had one of the same coasters on our list. That
Yeah.
just goes to show you that there's so many cool defunct coasters that we missed out on, because there's still, a lot that we didn't mention. And of course, there's all these RMC coasters that are coming, which are awesome, but at the same time, that means we're missing out on whatever the original coaster was,
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yes.
Oh
Well,
man.
guys, yeah, if you have been on any of these defunct coasters, let us know what we missed out on. I'm sure
Hmm.
most of these obviously closed because they were awful, but
Yes.
still, we would have liked to experience it.
All for the credits.
Right. So also you can check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Airtime Misfits, and we have a website where you can find some pretty cool defunct coaster stuff. That's airtimemisfits.com. And like I
Hmm.
said at the beginning of this episode, go back, listen to part one. In that episode, we talk about the defunct coasters that we did get to ride and our favorite ones. So it's another good episode. All right. You got anything else, or is that it?
No,
Any
just stay.
jokes?
I was trying to think of one, but I got nothing. My brain is sapped. Do you have any
Okay.
jokes?
No, I could pull one up, but that's all right. We'll just leave it there. And
Uh-huh.
then next time I'll work on my pun game, and then
There
I'll
we
have
go.
some good ones for the next episode.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
See you later, guys.
Bye.